Hey guys, Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. Today we're going to be talking about mastering your blood sugar, how to figure out what foods are going to be best for your metabolism, and the functional glucose tolerance test and how to use it. So before we dive in, please smash that like button. Love to see your comment down below, and make sure you sub to get notifications of great videos coming your way. So out of the gate, right, we've taken this principle of a glucose tolerance test, which is, typically you go to your doctor, they give you a 75-gram sugar drink, like a soda-ish or a big glass of orange juice, and they measure your blood sugar every 20 to 30 minutes, maybe glucose and insulin, and they see how high it is or how long it stays up. We've taken that same principle, but we're using it with actual food, because a lot of people may go to their doctor and they may have high blood sugar because of that, but they're like, hey, I don't eat sugar, I don't drink soda, so how does that really apply to me? Like, yeah, maybe if I drank sugar every day, that would be a problem, but I don't do that, so now what? So we're taking that same principle and we're trying to utilize it to assess how our body handles food. All right, so this is a really important principle. All right, so in general, I like the Keto Mojo device. It's pretty cool. Here's how it looks. You get one of these guys like this, and then you have the brown are the blood sugar strips. The blue are the ketones, so it does both ketones and blood sugar. It's one of the cheaper devices for ketones. Ketones can be very expensive. Here's the device, and you get an app for it as well. And then the app will basically sync up from here to your phone. And then you have the ability in the settings area, if you can see it, there's your My Mojo Health account. So you can, right there, My Mojo Health account, right there. You can sync it up, and that allows you to then pull up your graph online, and you can see your actual blood sugar. So pretty cool. Here's mine for one day. So this is a cool way you can do it. So what I like for a functional glucose tolerance is you come in and you take a 1 hour, you take a fasting, a 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour after a meal. Here's one from last month that I did. I knew I was gonna do a demo on this soon, so I took it. Here's my before a meal. I was at 116. Actually, this is 1 hour after a meal. So I ate a little bit earlier. This was my 1 hour. I was at 116. So here's the general trend that I want people to see. All right, we'll put it up on the screen here. But I want your fasting blood sugar to be below 100. So fasting is at least 4 hours after a meal. 1 hour after a meal, I want to be ideally 140 to 120 or below. Ideally 120 to below, but definitely 140. Below 140 is ideal, because once you start going above 140, it starts to create oxidative damage to your organs in your body due to glycation, right? Glycation is you're sugar coating all these proteins. That glycation then creates free radical damage, oxidation, and it robs your body of lots of antioxidants, causes capillary fragility, can cause all kinds of damage to blood flow, microvascular issues in the eye. So we want to be below that. That's really important. Plus, when we're too high, creates non-alcoholic fatty liver. Your body takes all this glucose and it's saying, well, where's it going to go? It's either going to go to your body to metabolize, it's going to go to your muscles to store it as glycogen, or it gets stored in your liver. And if you're eating more fructose, it goes to the liver first, muscles second. And then if you're sedentary or not moving, then it's going to start converting it once those places are full, especially the liver gets full a lot faster than the muscles, maybe 60 to 80 grams of storage there, maybe 200 to 300 in the muscle, depending on how muscular you're at. And so over time, once that liver is saturated and the muscles are saturated, it starts converting all this extra fructose or glucose to fat, and you start becoming more insulin resistant, and you need more and more insulin to get that glucose or fructose to where it needs to go, which then causes more and more fat storing, if you will, right? The higher your glucose is, you're make insulin with high glucose. When glucose is high, then that's going to cause your body to decrease the enzymes that cause you to burn fat. So you upregulate these enzymes called hormone-sensitive lipase. When hormone-sensitive lipase, or HSL, is high, right, you can go and actually burn fat for fuel. As you start eating more and more carbs, that hormone-sensitive lipase drops. You cannot tap into that fat. Your body's like, ooh, let's bring that hormone-sensitive lipase down. That way we can preferentially start to burn glucose. So if we're burning glucose, great, we're burning it. But now, let's say now we're not burning it. Now we're sedentary. What does the body do with it? The body is very fastidious at keeping that blood sugar at that 100 mg per dl or lower, right? 100 milligrams per deciliter or lower. That's ideal. And that's how much? If you have 6 liters of blood, guess how much glucose that is? That's 1 teaspoon. So 1 teaspoon of glucose is where it should be. So if you have a soda, that's 10 teaspoons of sugar. 12-ounce soda is 10 teaspoons. Drink that soda, your body is essentially getting rid of 9 teaspoons right away. And if you go to a half a teaspoon, you're probably in a coma. That's below 50. So you see how fastidious your body is in regards to keeping your blood sugar stable? It's super fastidious. And if you're adding a bunch of glucose or fructose Fructose is worse because it goes preferentially more to the liver. Glucose goes more to the muscles. So if you're doing like safe starches, squash, white rice, white potato, more glucose, less fructose, goes more to the muscles, less to the liver. When you're doing lots of fructose, lots of soda, or high fructose corn syrup or too much fruit, it goes to the liver first, and you have less fructose reservoir for storage in the liver than you do the muscles. And so the body starts to create insulin resistance, and it gets very efficient at turning that now into fat. Creates palmitic acid or palmitic fat. Palmitic fatty acid. It'll just convert it to that, palmitic acid. That's a big fat that's going to get converted from the glucose or fructose into that fat to store it. And so think of insulin. It's like a person that, with the person that conducts all the planes, air traffic controller. That's the word. So planes come in. It's saying, okay, insulin. So we ate a bunch of sugar, ate a bunch of fructose, ate a bunch of glucose. All right. So fructose is high, glucose is high. We're making a bunch of insulin. The body's going, okay, all right, let's go to the muscles because we're moving, Okay, now we're not moving, we're not active. Okay, let's store it in the muscles. Let's store it this way in the liver. Okay, the liver's full, the muscles are full. Okay, now let's convert that to palmitic acid and convert it to fat. So it's constantly conducting based on how active you are, based on your reservoir storage sites in the liver and muscle, or based on you being sedentary. You have no more storage, and now it's going to fat. So that's kind of how insulin is working. Now, if we get bigger muscles, we exercise, we squeeze out our glycogen in our muscles, we squeeze out the glycogen in our liver, so now we have better reservoir sites if we're not active. Maybe we go for a walk after a meal, and we drop that glucose down. So let me go back to this graph. Here's what I did here. This is 30 minutes to an hour after a meal. I was 116. All right, and this is going to be this was like 30 minutes after a meal. Yeah, so this is actually, 11:29. Yeah, so this is right after a meal. And this is hour 2. So I was a little bit high still. I want to be, so our numbers should be 120 to 140 or below, hour 1. So fasting is below 100. Hour 1 is 140 to 120 or lower, hour 1. Hour 2, below 100. Hour 3, definitely below 100. So this is hour 2 after a meal. I'm 109. I'm a little bit elevated. So what I did was I went for a walk. Took a patient call on my little desk treadmill over in the corner there. And I went from 109 to 83. And I did that in like less than 1 hour. That was a 40-minute walk. So look at that. And you could see that curve. Just see that just absolutely spike down like that. Just that drop. So that's how glucose can help. So if you're eating a little bit too much carbs or your blood sugar is lingering too high, guess what? Go for a walk. Just a simple walk. Doesn't have to be anything that impacts your appetite. Go do some air squats. You can go bang out some air squats or go bang out some calisthenics and just do some jumping jacks, push-ups, just something simple. Again, if you just ate and you don't want to upset your stomach, simple, slow walk. It doesn't have to be anything intensive. If you're 2 hours after a meal, that wouldn't cause indigestion. You can do that. Also, we may add in extra B vitamins, extra magnesium, extra chromium, a little bit of extra blood sugar support. I might take my mitochondrial support. I'll hit that right now, actually. That has some nutrients in there, B vitamins, ALA, CoQ10, magnesium. So there can be things that you do that help kind of mitigate that. And so in general, we want that blood sugar to be 140 to 120 or below, hour 1. Fasting, so our fasting is going to be below 100. Hour 1, 140 to 120 or lower. Hour 2, we want to be below 120, but ideally below 100. Hour 3, below 100. If you have when you use the Keto Mojo, you can connect it to your phone and connect it to the mymojohealth.com, and that'll graph it all out, and you can see it. And then so when you do your functional glucose tolerance test, you can actually have it graphed out like here. Now here's how I do it, just so you can see. Pretty simple. Now this gives us an indirect measurement of how insulin is doing. So the longer our blood sugar stays high, that means the more insulin resistance there is, okay? The more insulin resistance there is. That means the more insulin we made, okay? So the more glucose we take in, that eventually goes into our bloodstream and gets metabolized. We call that the glycemic index. Again, most people don't consume a food by itself, so the better way to handle it is glycemic load. Because glycemic load takes in the fact of like, maybe I ate some blueberries that have a glycemic index of 35, but then I ate some steak that has a glycemic index of 10, right? So maybe that is now like a 15. So you want to look at the load, gives you a much better window. And typically, just counting the carb calories The carb grams is usually good. You know, if you're keeping it under 20 to 30 a meal, you're usually pretty good unless you're really insulin resistant. So usually below 100 a day for most people is pretty good. Below 50 if you're really insulin resistant. How do you know? Functional glucose tolerance test like this. If you're staying above, 120 to 140 in hour 1, or you're staying above 120 in hour 2, or you're still above 100 in hour 3, that tells you you're probably more on the insulin resistant side. So if you're eating more starch or more fruit, guess what? Drop down the serving of fruit or drop down the serving of starch, add a little bit more leafy green vegetables. Make sure the proteins you're consuming are going to have extra good fats in there because that'll time release it. Protein does get converted to glucose, but it's usually 75% less than what you would have if it was carbohydrate. It's usually more time release because protein requires digestion. It doesn't have that same level of glycemic index. It doesn't spike that fast. And so because of that, the slower and the more time released it comes in, you get more of a trickle, which means you get a trickle of insulin as well. And so the slower the blood sugar comes in, the slower the insulin comes up. The faster it comes in, then the insulin has to bring it back down. And so you can actually have a reactive hypoglycemic drop where it comes down really fast because you ate a ton of carbs, you overshot insulin, and it brought it down really fast. We call that the roller coaster effect. Now, you have to be insulin sensitive to do that, but that still can create this roller coaster effect and create mood issues and energy issues and even brain fog. Can also make you crash. So at the bottom, you're feeling anxious, you're feeling, maybe you have cravings, maybe you're tired but wired, maybe you're sleepy, and then it creates this cycle because now you crave more carbohydrates and now you go back to that same thing again. So that's a common pattern you want to break. So ideally, good proteins and fats tends to time release that glucose. I've never seen someone really spike their glucose high with just steak, or like a ribeye, or like some kind of a chicken thigh with skin on. And it's usually going to be the carbohydrate, more starch, but starch is glucose, so it's easier to handle that. But typically any of the added fructose, any added processed sugars, and potentially more starch as well. So real quick, prick your finger like that, kind of milk it out a little bit. There we go. I got my glucose thing already stuck in there. Rip the package out, give it a little touch. Oh, did it grab it? Oh, I got an error. All right, let's try it again. And when you rip it right in the middle too, because if you don't get it in the middle, it's hard to come off. And see, I made a classic mistake there. It's good for you guys to see it because you get to learn. I did not put enough blood on the strip because it gets to go all the way down. Gives you this little channel right here. That little channel, if you don't fill it all the way up, it just won't trigger. So now we go back. I got to hit another spot. Let's do my other finger. There it goes. And I put mine on 2. I'm going to milk out just a little bit more blood this time, just to ensure I have enough. Touch it. There it goes. Now it gives me the countdown. So I'm at 90. That's good. And I have not eaten lunch yet. So I'm already, 4 hours after a meal. I'm, in the 90s. That's good. So I'll eat a meal. I'll probably go up to 110, 115, 120 in that area. And I'll go for a walk after my meal. 10 minutes will lower your blood sugar 10, 20% a lot of times. So if you're more insulin resistant, what do? Watch the carbs. People will say, well, should you be low carb? Should you be high carb? Should you be low protein? It's like, just test it. All right. Protein's important. Protein and fat are satiating. They lower the glycemic load. They time release the carbohydrate that's in your tummy because everything gets basically held up to your protein and fat being digested. So if you eat carbs with it, it's time release everything and make it go slower. And so that's important. And so you can time release it. Plus it hits a lot of satiating chemicals in your brain, adiponectin, peptide YY, cholecystokinin. These things tell you you're full. So it's easier to be in control of your appetite and not overeat. All right. That's the key thing. So I'm at 90 here. Now I pull up my phone just so you guys can see. Go to sync, searching for device, and it should be able to, there it goes. It's saying 2. Good. 1 reading imported, just like that. Now I can go back to my graph. Let's see if it comes in. And I have this as a custom range, so we'll pick today's date, which I think what we have today. Today's the 17th. There we go. I'm there. I'm 90. So before that, I was 108. This was like hour 2 to 3 after a meal. So I went from 108 to 90. I actually did a quick circuit of lifting. I did some push-ups, some reverse wood chops, some rows, and some tricep extensions, and some bicep curls. So that lowered it pretty good right there. And so I'm at 90. And so this is how it works. So it connects just like that, which is really nice. And so if you want to do that fasting 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, take a simple breakfast, lunch, and dinner and run it out. See how you do. Also, there's the impact of foods being inflammatory actually increasing your blood sugar. What's the mechanism? Well, you have foods that are going to break down to glucose or have carbs in it. All carbs break down into either glucose, typically if it's going to be starchy, or if it's added sugar in it, right? Fructose on the fruit side. Fructose doesn't not increase blood sugar a ton, but it does create insulin resistance, so it has the same impact, right? It's going to create the same kind of problems. Again, the glycemic load matters, right? So if you're eating berries, it's like a 30 glycemic index. If you're eating, let's say, mangoes, that's going to be something in the 60, 70, 80. So the glycemic index is how fast that blood sugar goes in. The load matters because if you're eating blueberries with some coconut yogurt and collagen and maybe an avocado, that totally changes how that absorbs and goes into your bloodstream. The faster it goes in, the more it pops out. Again, within reason. If you're eating a reasonable amount of blueberries with an avocado, it's different. If you're eating 5 servings of blueberries, it'll get basically time release, proportionally. So if you're doing reasonable, palm servings to a palm serving, that's going to have that same level of effect. If you're doing a lot more carbs to a little bit of protein, then it's going to have, 4 to 5 times less of that time release effect. So just kind of common sense stuff. So in regards to that, we talked about glucose. We talked about inflammation and let's say gluten, for instance. That can create inflammation. Inflammation causes what? A cortisol response. What does cortisol do? It's going to be an anti-inflammatory, but it also mobilizes glucose. So if you have a lot of cortisol surging in your body because you're inflamed, your body's trying to put out the fire of inflammation, but now it's surging cortisol, which does what to your blood sugar? Cause it to go up. So sometimes the foods in and of themselves, they can make your blood sugar go up, not because of the blood sugar themselves, because of the carbohydrate and the glycemic index or load, but because of the inflammation and the mobilization of glucose. So do not forget that. That's a really important factor. To people that are insulin sensitive or insulin resistant and they consume a bunch of gluten and they're gluten sensitive too, they can have a lot of glucose because of the inflammation response. Not to mention people that don't eat enough protein or fat, that does impact the glycemic load. And again, the people that tend to be more on the vegan vegetarian side, test it, guess what? They tend to be more ectomorphs. These people do better with glucose and carbs, right? Some people that are insulin sensitive, when they have glucose and carbs, they naturally want to go outside, go for a walk, go for a run, do something active. They feel energized, right? A lot of people with too much glucose and carbs, right? Look at the world, right? Look at the last 100 years and how much sugar and starch and food have increased. They want to go for a nap. They feel tired. So different people, based on their ectomorph, their somatotype, and how their body handles protein, fat, or carbs, they either get energized or they get fatigued. And so these are the people that do much better, lower carb, more protein, more fat. Dial in the carbs according to your energy level. Look at the functional glucose tolerance test, like I mentioned. Get your fasting, get your 1 hour, get your 2 hour, get your 3 hour, and customize your blood sugar according to you. Now, I tell people, on average, most people, due to stress, due to insulin resistance, do better lower carb. Start lower carb and then just work your way up. Be, agnostic. Be macronutrient agnostic to what allows you to feel good. I tell patients there should be a hallmark philosophy that you work from: anti-inflammatory, nutrient-dense, and low toxins key. Organic better, keeping the inflammation down. So I would always recommend keeping dairy out initially, unless maybe it's some high-quality grass-fed butter, focusing on good, healthy fats, avoiding the nuts and seeds and the inflammatory damaged fats, and then making sure we have good proteins and choosing full-fat protein. That's a key. And then you can use the Keto Mojo. We'll put links down below for the Keto Mojo, and you can get the app here, the Mojo Health. You can make sure you connect it, go to your settings here, and do my Mojo Health account, get an account, and then you can graph it and then look at it like I am here, and then pick 3 random meals a week. Fasting, 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour. At fasting, we want to be below 100. 1 hour, 120 or below. Ideally 140 to 120, but if you're extra points, 120 or below. Hour 2, we want to be 120 to ideally below 100. And then hour 3, definitely below 100. All right, guys, hope this helps. If you have issues, blood sugar staying high, reduce carbs, step 1. So look at the amount of carbs you're doing, bring the amount of carbs down, 50 grams net, right? Net carbs are carbs minus fiber or sugar alcohols. Next, add in some blood sugar nutrients, magnesium, B vitamins, alpha lipoic acid, chromium, gymnema, vanadium, all good blood sugar nutrients. In my line, we have one called Glucose Energy, works really well. Next 3, go for a walk. Go for a 5-10 minute walk after the meal. If it's 2 hours later, bang out 15, 20 jumping jacks, bang out some burpees. That's for 2 hours. But in that first hour, gentle walk. A lot of times you do that. That sets you on a path to good digestion and better blood sugar. And if you have more blood sugar issues or hormone issues, I'll put a link down below where you can reach out, schedule a consult with myself, my team, and we'll be happy to look deeper at your hormones. If you're a female and you have blood sugar issues, guess what? The hallmark of most blood sugar, of most hormones being off on the female hormone-wise, whether it's menopause, whether it's PMS from cycling females, is blood sugar. Blood sugar is a major stressor on the female hormone system, on the endocrine system. So if your blood sugar is already wonky or staying up high, that insulin resistance can cause lots of things. It can increase aromatase in guys and cause more estrogen. In women, it can increase enzymes that cause more androgens and can increase prolactin and throw off your cycle and maybe even create estrogen dominance. So you got to look at these things deeper. So it'll be linked down below. If you want to reach out to my team and staff, we're happy to help and work with you worldwide on the functional medicine side. All right, guys, let me know your thoughts. Put your comments down below. Take care. Bye.